Wannabe made it first. Beating out Bjorn. Jesus. Well, it's going to be one of those weeks, I guess, guys. Bjorn not coming in first. I don't know what that means. I don't know if when he comes in, we have a good show or a bad one. Considering he was first for many, many weeks in a row, I would say we probably had a great show when he came in first. But Mohammed, how are you? All right. Anyway, guys, so interesting week around the world, to say the least. I'm still in the office, so I don't know what everybody else is doing, but I'm still here. I wish XCM would go up 1 cent every time Corona will be mentioned in the CMA. That would be amazing. I don't know how many times I'm going to say Corona, but it will be said more than once probably. I already said it 2 or 3 times, I think. So I could go to the U.S. I'm a citizen. I can travel to the U.S. I'm also a citizen of Mexico. I could go there. There's still a few countries I think you can travel without being a citizen. Not necessarily sure you'd want to go to those countries or have any reason to go there, but you could travel there if you wanted to. Anyway, let's wait a few minutes for all our home dwellers, homeschoolers, home workers to make their way into the chat here, and then we'll get rolling. Yeah. There's always good things happening. Look, guys. Anyway, we're going to probably talk about Corona way too much on this show, but yeah, that was on the soon meter. On the soon meter, they came in quite fast. You never know what's soon, right? Soon can be really soon, not so soon, distantly soon, closely soon, majorly soon. I don't know. I don't know the adjectives that are supposed to go in front of soon, to be quite honest. What are you eating right now, Bjorn? Just wondering. Not because you asked me to ask you. It just literally was a question that was sitting in the front of my brain while I've been sitting here talking. Can I get an answer now that I asked? Jesus. I mean, it's only the right thing to do, I think. All right, so no answer. None of my business. All right, right on. I guess I fell right into that one. I'll just chalk that up to, I'll blame it on Corona. Everything else is being blamed on Corona, right? So just throw that one on top. All right, guys. I guess we'll get rolling here. Why not? Let me break out my AMA Cliff Notes here. I used to say the AMA cheat sheet, but then that kind of sounded like I was just reading off a script. So I'm going to call it my AMA Cliff Notes. It's probably not the right term for it either. Anybody ever use Cliff Notes in school? Yeah. I remember I bought a few times and never even read them. Quite a waste of money. Anyway, here we go. So for those of you that have never been here, This Week in Crypto is all about, well, last week in crypto, I guess, since we do it on a Friday and talk about this week, which is kind of like last week now, or it's still this week, but kind of like the last 5 days. I don't know. So anyway, the show revolves around me. First, starting out with a market news list of market news, pieces of market news, curated by our fine Telegram elite Telegram group members. Thank you guys and gals for that. 10 pieces of news. I go over each one, give a comment on each one. Takes 1 to 2 minutes per news clip, I guess, unless it mentions Binance. Then I may go off on a tangent and say some bad words that little children shouldn't hear and old people. And then it might take me 4 or 5 minutes. I don't know. There's a couple other things that kind of get me riled up and triggered, but Binance is definitely one of them. After I go through those 10 pieces of news and everybody has tired of listening to me talk, we do Kevin Explains Crypto. I usually have a term. I always have a term or a word, and I define what it means. Sounds pretty easy. Then we do the live Q&A somewhere over here on YouTube. All these nice questions that pop up. I try and answer them to the best of my ability. And then we have some Reddit questions that were also curated over the last week. I see one from last week, so nice and easy on Reddit. So I'll probably answer that before we get into the live questions, but we'll see how it rolls. And let's get into the news, shall we? Okay, so number 1 on a list of 10, crypto lenders demand more than 100 million in margin calls. Yeah, well, considering the fact that the market's tanked like every other market did in the world, essentially, I'm sure there's like one or two markets that probably went up in value. Small markets, somewhere in the world, but major indices, bond markets, everything pretty much died, crypto included. So yeah, 100 million in margin calls. It actually doesn't seem like all that much, considering the market cap, the size of the market cap versus the amount of the big hit we took. 100 million doesn't sound all that bad. When lending first came out, I always said in a volatile industry, you have a loan to value ratio of 50, 70%. Doesn't take much volatility to give an issue, to put an issue on the table. Obviously, I don't know if we have a story here or if this story may tie into Maker and Maker Die, where basically Maker almost blew up because the people were buying collateral for zero on their auction marketplace. So just goes to show that we haven't created a solution yet, guys. What we thought was a great solution has been proven not to be so great. But at least people are learning from their mistakes, and hopefully this will lead to better products, better services, better structures in the future. Number 2 on the list of 10, BitMEX Insurance tags all-time high. A fund tags all-time high. Binance and Deribit inject millions. Yeah, again, market tanks, lots of people get stopped out, lots of people with negative balances, lots of slippage. There you go. It's great that, to a certain extent, obviously most of these guys created these insurance funds, quote unquote. One, let's look at this on the nice side of the fence. One, because there was no insurance funds offered to them because one, they're not regulated for the most part. Two, there is no real insurance fund structure for, crypto derivatives firms. So they created their own. Let's look on the actual real side of the fence now, saying that they did this mainly for a marketing ploy, right? Because you say, we have an insurance fund, we put some of our profits there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. By the way, most of those profits coming from the fact that they more than likely are B-booking 100% of all the trades that flow in on high leverage contracts, which basically means that they're not going anywhere. They're not matched to shit. They're matched to nothing. And when people get stopped out, when people get, what was our term last week? Liquidated. Kevin explains crypto from last week. Look it up if you don't know what that one means. We have a video somewhere on YouTube. I'm sure you would be able to find it. But the reason people get liquidated, they make that money. So they take a small bit of your money they stole from you the week before, not stole, the money they basically ripped out of your pocket the week before or the day before or the minute before, stick it in a fund, a percentage of it, very small percentage of it, and then give it back to you when you go into negative balance territory. Isn't that nice of them? Number 3 on a list of 10, institutional traders caused the Bitcoin price drop, chain analysis claims. So I looked at this one because we use chain analysis, and I was interested to see what kind of hardcore details I was going to read. Now, this could be just the shitty article I read. But basically what it says is that they believe that because I think 7 out of 10 transfers when the price was tanking were between 10 and 1,000 BTC. So what? What does that mean? Is that how they came to a conclusion that most of the fall was because of institutional traders? Look, guys, when the fall, now I wouldn't bet against the fact that a good deal of money that flowed out of the market was from institutional traders, mainly because the reason why they had money in Bitcoin is because it was supposed to not correlate to other financial markets. Then it started to correlate. So when it correlated, guess what happened? They said, oh shit, we were wrong. And they started to sell. That pushed the market lower. Capitulation basically kicked in for retail guys as well, fear-based capitulation, and everybody started selling. So, but a little piece of data saying that, 7 and 10 transfers on chain were between 10 and 1,000 doesn't tell me much, unless normally only 1 in 10 transactions are between that amount. But we didn't get that data in the story, so no real way to compare. Even then, it would only be one piece of data, which wouldn't tell me wouldn't relieve the doubt that this probably or may not be true. Number 3 on the list of 10, Nouriel Roubini, my pal, proposes tokenized toilet paper more useful than gold. I guess he thought he was being funny. Somebody has actually already created this. There's a white paper out there for tokenized toilet paper. Obviously this is in jest. saying that, kind of making fun of stable coins that are backed or not backed by anything really, and in this case, actually backed by something. And of course, virtual toilet paper is not physical, so when you trade it with someone, you don't have the fear of possibly getting coronavirus on your virtual toilet paper. I think this just goes to show again that Nouriel misses the point sometimes. In my little debate I had with him, there's not a video of it, unfortunately, I don't think online, but there was a photo of him and me smiling afterwards. He misses the point on a few things. I think he sees what's occurring now in the market, and he doesn't really understand what the technology and what the use of that technology can do for financial markets in the future. He just focuses on the now. Which, obviously that's why he's not an entrepreneur, right? Number 5 on a list of 10, Spanish securities watchdog halts short selling amid coronavirus-caused recession. Well, we talked about, we've seen in the past, what was that last week or this week, circuit breakers. Well, there's been circuit breakers this week as well in the US that were triggered. I actually talked with, Jesus, who was I talking with? I was talking with somebody, recently, did an interview about circuit breakers. And, the question was, these don't exist. Of course, now Huobi, I think there's probably a new story. I think that might be the next one. Huobi has instituted now circuit breakers to try and stop, markets go moving in one direction, which is usually south. I've never heard of circuit breakers when markets move too high, to the north, only when they move too far to the south, meaning markets fall, they click the circuit breaker. But I think, limiting short selling doesn't mean you can't short. Obviously, if you own the asset, you can sell it, right? You just can't go short, meaning you can't take on credit and sell something you don't own. Now, I guess from a free market standpoint, you could argue that, well, why can't I? Why that you're limiting the access to the free market? On this point, though, I would have to say that considering the crisis that exists, they probably made the right move, though it's going to be controversial. And it's controversial in one way, because if the market had gone up 40%, would they stop people from buying? They stop people from buying on leverage? No. Is that not just as dangerous, buying on leverage in a 40% move over a few days, than selling on leverage? Of course it is. From the trader perspective, it's just as risky. But where it isn't risky is the effect on the actual economy, right? So that's why they don't care. So it just goes to show that some rules are in place. They're not impartial. They're very partial rules. They're really focused on one side, and that simply is, we don't want markets to tank so hard because it has a very direct effect to the underlying economy, and that's kind of bullshit if you think about it. Number 6 on a list of 10, Huobi adds crypto circuit breaker after last week's mass liquidations. I'm sure Huobi is going to get a whole ton of shit from this one. And I guess they probably should. They're the first ones to do it. Look, I think, there's two ways to go with this market. Either we stay as an unregulated, fully open, nobody cares, do what you want, used car salesman owning exchange type of business, or we move into the more mature institutional money really wants to get in here, and that $1 trillion euro marketplace. And to do that, it's going to mean that a lot of the rules that are applied to those traditional markets will be applied to this market. So when our kids and grandkids are trading tokenized assets in the future, it is the traditional market, which means circuit breakers are probably going to be on every platform, every regulated platform at some point. Either that, or we get rid of them entirely, even in what is currently our traditional market and what may eventually become a fully tokenized market. So the question is, which one works? We instituted those things for a reason, and they seem to work. Now, if we get rid of them again, what'll be the cause? Well, we saw the cause in the crypto market, right? You see different platforms where prices can go down to almost close to zero because there's no liquidity, or there's less liquidity on that single platform, even though on other platforms that doesn't happen, or at least to the same extent. So that also leads to another question. Do we get rid of this OTC pricing model? Are we going to have a centralized main exchange for pricing? Not necessarily for trading, but for price discovery. Is that going to happen? It probably should, if we're going to have a more mature globalized market, or global market, sorry. But let's see what happens. But Huobi, some balls from Huobi to be able to do this, to take the step to do it. Well, you could also argue that they have no balls, and that's why they did it. I don't know which side of the fence you're on that one. From a kind of business angle, it's both, right? We don't want to get so many liquidations that lead to negative balances that we're going to have to actually pay. But from a PR perspective, it takes a bit of balls to do that first, because you're going to get a lot of backlash from the crypto community, that's for sure. Number 7 on list of 10, Venezuela shuts down banks amid panic. Venezuelan bank. That's an oxymoron for you, right? I mean, is there really money in Venezuelan banks? I mean, is the Bolivar really money? I mean, can we define it as money? It's definitely not stable. I wouldn't call it stable, that's for sure. Look, Venezuela. Look, you have a country that's, well, this is a dictatorship, not really a country, to be quite honest. And yeah, they shut down banks. Was that expected? Of course it was. Of course it was expected. Why? Because the banks, the cool thing about having banks that aren't owned by the government is the banks have to take the heat. Now, you could argue that in modern times, we have something called a bailout, which means that the taxpayer ends up footing the bill for the bank's really bad risk policies, right? But at least those banks could actually create and follow their own risk policies, of course, based on a regulatory set of guidelines. But in a country where all banks are state-run, well, this is what happens. One guy throws the gavel down and all banks are shut down. So again, neither of those is perfect. Actually, they both kind of suck for different reasons. But has crypto really proven yet that it's an alternative? I'm not sure it has, right? What happened when the shit hit the fan, 10 days ago? Everybody went to cash, right? Nobody stayed in Bitcoin. Well, some people did, but lots of people sold, right? Vis-a-vis the market crash. Number 8 on the list of 10, Peter Brandt touts 0 as Bitcoin's potential bottom. And he's correct. If anybody thinks it's not possible that Bitcoin could hit 0, then they're delusional. Is it probable is the real question. I would say that it's not probable, at least under current market conditions, that it would hit 0. But it definitely is possible. Of course it's possible. How could it not be possible? Give me one good reason why it's not possible. And I won't even wait, because there isn't one. Number 9 on the list of 10, Congress proposal to give everyone $2,000 a month strengthens case for Bitcoin. I didn't see $2,000 a month. And is it U.S. Congress, or what is this? I would imagine. I saw this, like 4.5K per adult, 1K per child, or something like that. Anyway, the real crux of the story is that printing more money is going to devalue the currency. It means pricing will go up. You will get more money circulating in the economy for short term. Pricing will go up because the currency itself will deflate, which will create an inflation in prices. And then eventually the money stops. So now basically the powers that be have to make a decision. Do they continue to print more money and devalue the currency until it's literally worthless, like you've seen in Zimbabwe and other places around the world in modern times? Or do you stop printing and wait for the markets to basically reset and find true value, true prices, which obviously is going to cause a lot of pain and piss off a lot of voters? No country has ever chosen that second one, by the way. They've always just decided to print until oblivion. So I would assume that's probably what every country would choose. We're now in a situation, though, where the entire world, to a certain extent, is seeing the type of issues that these economies, these micro economies, have seen, where they've had to devalue the shit out of their currency. So obviously, spreading the wealth in an election year may sound great to some, though will probably end up causing more heartache than it does problem solving at the end of the day. But how do you explain that to people? Most people don't understand how economies work, right? Just give me the money. I could use the money, right? To be honest, why don't they just liquidate everybody's debt? I mean, screw it, right? You're already just giving out money, all over the place for no reason, right? Well, not for no reason, but you're already just adding $1 trillion to the deficit or more, 2 trillion, 3 trillion, 10 trillion, whatever it ends up being at the end of the day. Just put all our debts to 0. Why not? Let's all start from a 0 slate. Everybody saw Fight Club, right? Not everybody, but some of you guys had to see Fight Club, right? The premise of Fight Club, right? Get everybody to start from 0. Let's see what happens. I can almost guarantee you it wouldn't work. But, I'm willing to take that experiment, Why not? Everybody can just liquidate my debt. Go ahead, go for it. Put it all at 0. Let's see what happens. Number 10 on the list of 10, Hawaii launches digital currency Sandbox to attract crypto firms. I actually sent them an email today, actually. It's you guys know what we're doing in Montenegro. Well, anybody that's been here before knows what we're doing in Montenegro. Sandbox, capital market infrastructure, everything from primary market to settlement to secondary market, all on DLT. Great. Now, that's in Montenegro. We'd love to do that in the US. We're in talks right now back and forth between the SEC using a legal firm in the US to see how we can possibly get no action relief from the SEC to do the same thing in the US. This may be a way to do it, albeit maybe only on a statewide level. Now, in the US, state law, prevails over federal law in many instances, at least inside that specific state. When it comes to the currency exchange business, you have something called every US state has something called MSB licenses, money service business licenses. And then there's FinCEN, which is where you have to register on a federal level as a money service business. As a currency exchange or a crypto exchange facility, you're considered to be a money service business. However, if you're exempted from the Hawaii regulator, that doesn't exempt you from every other state, but you may be able to do a crypto exchange if you don't have a physical presence in any of those other states. However, except maybe New York. However, what about trading of securities? Because the SEC does have they have jurisdiction over the entire country, not just one state. So anyway, I sent them an email seeing if they'd be willing to kind of allow us to test this ecosystem in Hawaii and what their views on whether if we could actually test it to its full capabilities based on the fact that the SEC is really the regulator that covers these type of operations. So we'll have to see what they say, but it's interesting. It's good to see. It's not really a sandbox. So just to explain the difference, sandbox, there's not much of a difference, but the terminology is different. A sandbox is essentially a place that has a specific type of regulatory rules in a box. You can't go outside that box. You're usually limited to what you can do. And the timeframes are 6 months to a year for the most part. In Hawaii, in the US, they don't do sandboxes. They do something called no action relief. You're given a letter, kind of like Switzerland does the same thing. You're given a letter from the regulator that says, look, you can do this particular business. You can run it, usually it's 2 years, for up to 2 years. And you still have to, adhere to these regulations that don't apply to, let's say, the specific regulator. Like, you still have to do AML and KYC, and you still have to abide by company rules and things like that. But you're given specific relief for a specific set of regulations. So it's no action relief. It's not really a sandbox, but they're very similar in how they operate. All right, so we're going to move into Kevin Explains Crypto. This week's term on Kevin Explains Crypto is futures, and then in parentheses I have Bitcoin futures. Well, Bitcoin futures. So my first thing, what is a future, right? So when you talk about just the generic term of futures, you can kind of glean a little bit what it is just by the word future. You are basically buying or selling something based on a possible future price. So you're betting on a future price. Most futures contracts outside of Bitcoin, and not all of them, but most of them, are not perpetual. In Bitcoin, in crypto, most futures contracts are perpetual. That means there's no end date. You simply you're seeing a live price, and you're either buying or selling at that price, and you're predicting that in the future, obviously, if you're buying, the price will go higher, and if you're selling, the price is going to go lower. The difference, however, is that most futures in the real world have an end date. They're either monthly, quarterly, mostly are monthly or quarterly. Some do go for further, and some are arbitrary dates, but most are monthly or quarterly. That means that contract will automatically end. If you don't liquidate it, if you don't get out of that contract, if you don't sell and take your profits, for example, or buy and take your profits and leave that contract open, it'll automatically close on that maturity date. Now, why would someone choose that type of future versus a perpetual future? Well, most futures, at least not most, many futures in the real world are used for hedging. For instance, you're a multinational corporation like Walmart, for example, or whatever, Tesco, and you sell products all over the world and you're paid in multiple currencies. You know that you're due 400 million euros from Europe and you're a USD-based business, and that payment's going to come within 60 days. You may want to hedge your exposure to that euro contract in case euros are valued at more, at let's say less US dollars than they are currently. then basically you want to make sure you're going to get paid at least the same amount of US dollars that you're currently owed in terms of the conversion rate as of today, right? So you open a futures contract to hedge that exposure. Now, again, Bitcoin futures, most are perpetual. So it's a bit different. They're not really futures, but they're future-like. And why trade futures rather than the underlying product? Mainly for liquidity. Futures can be extremely more liquid than the underlying market in an illiquid market, because it really depends on how much the market maker is willing to take. How much BitMEX can take on exposure is basically how much liquidity there tends to be. And because most futures providers are actually taking the risk themselves, if most clients are losing money, they will take substantial amounts of risk, which means there's substantial amounts of liquidity. One more thing to mention on Bitcoin futures, and I think Harold mentioned this in the chat one time, is that most of these are inverse, actually. And I haven't really paid attention to this, to be quite honest, but with most futures contracts, you are basically paid in whatever the quote currency is. Is that right? Bit of quote currency? I think so, yeah. So if you had in the normal world, if you're having a future on a specific commodity, you're going to be actually paid in the underlying quote currency, which might be USD or Euro or whatever the case may be. It depends on where you're actually buying or selling that contract. However, in an inverse, you're actually paid on with the other side. So if it's a Bitcoin future contract, even if it's priced in USD, you'll be paid in Bitcoin. Yeah, I think that's it. So let's go to the Reddit question real quick here. Six My Bad asking, Kevin, please tell us, what do you think about the financial system, money printing, and the status of banks? Also, do you think people will escape fiat inflation by going to Bitcoin? That's a good question. I could take a long time to answer this one. I think the financial system, we've proven all our financial systems, Bitcoin included, unfortunately, is not ready for a real worldwide economic crisis. It tells us that we haven't learned much from the last crisis. And if we have learned anything, we haven't really applied everything we've learned. If you see what the Fed in the US has done, right? The Fed has not many weapons that they can use to fight an oncoming or a current recession. Main tool that they can do is lower interest rates. Lowering interest rates means people don't want to keep their savings in a bank. They pull their savings out of the bank so that they can push them mainly into stocks. To be honest, people say that they want that negative interest rates or lower interest rates so people will spend money, and that's true. But for the most part, it's meant so that people will throw money back into something that pays them more interest, which is normally stocks in most countries, or bonds, but mostly stocks. At least for the common investor, it's going to be stocks. Stock markets around the world are a game that is not very transparent, where valuations, where the value of stocks can be, multitudes of the value of the underlying company. And as we've seen, they're very fragile, right? Even a small issue, to be honest, like the underlying coronavirus issue, creates a fear-based panic sell around the world that basically implodes modern financial markets. That's kind of scary. And that shows us that, and what does the Fed do? I can't back to the Fed. What does the Fed do? They immediately lower rates to almost zero. And now they're talking about flooding the market with cash. That's it. What other? It's the worst way to enter into a possible recession. Why? What do you do from there? You've already literally taken the tools you have out of the toolbox and use them. It's like going into war or going into going into war. You have two weapons, right? And you literally use both of them and expend all your ammunition before the other guy fires the second or third bullet. So what do you do now? No idea. That's what you do. You just sit there and twiddle your thumbs and hope that shit works out. Do you think people will escape inflation by going to Bitcoin? No, simply put, because what are you going to do with that Bitcoin? You can put all your assets into Bitcoin right now and assume you're escaping inflation. But is your rent, mortgage, car payment, all that good stuff, is that priced in Bitcoin? No. You're still going to have to pay in fiat, right? For most things that you have to pay in life. Most, things that really matter. And if the shit really were to hit the fan and you needed to buy tuna fish, an M16, and some ammunition, if you're from Kentucky, if you're from anywhere else in the world, you're probably not buying a gun in that equation. But anyway, a little bit of dry humor for you. What are they taking Bitcoin? Probably not. Maybe they are, but do you think they're not going to price gouge on the Bitcoin? I mean, no, you're not escaping inflation, unfortunately. So Bitcoin, now you can make the argument that Bitcoin could rise at an exponential amount over and above the inflation on the underlying asset. But that's an argument you can't really prove. Not yet. All right, let's run into the live chat here. I don't know why I just made that noise, but I felt like it, so I did it. Can you talk more about the CSD and what is the settlement time? Sure, Mohammed. If you ask me some specific questions, because I can talk about the CSD forever, but essentially we've created a product with Ignium that is essentially a CSD, Central Securities Depository, built on DLT technology that incorporates a virtual settlement layer that can do settlement cross-border in real time. So literally in real time, no T0, no T1, no T2, T3, none of that. It happens in real time. And that happens between communication links that are set up between ourselves and all the connected MTFs or connected secondary or primary market platforms that connect into the CSD. And then the assets are created right now on the Ethereum blockchain. We use omnibus accounting systems along with, let's say, secondary wallets that are multi-sig, so that when assets are in trade, either that's a cash asset, a tokenized cash asset, or a natively tokenized, let's say, bond in this instance, two omnibus accounts, one for cash, one for assets. On the omnibus layer and the virtual settlement layer, things happen in real time. When people want to move their assets out of trade, they can move them either automatically or they can move them manually back into that custody wallet that sits as well inside of our infrastructure, but is built as essentially a cold wallet, multi-sig cold wallet. So that's it. That's the cry. I don't want to go too much into the technicals because I think we have a very unique system in that standpoint. But settlement time is real time, absolute real time. What's your thoughts about BitMEX going down for maintenance when shit really hit the fan on the 13th and the 100% bounce in the following minutes? Well, it's hard to say here, but I can say that going down for maintenance obviously is bullshit. But them going down might have not been of their own call. Like not that I don't think, I should say it's possible. And I don't really have an opinion here, but it's definitely possible they went down because they just couldn't handle a load. And if that's the case, regardless of what the case is of how it went down, if a platform is down and you're panicking and you're seeing everything else just go nuts, right? And then all of a sudden the underlying market moves in a contrary fashion, and then the market comes back online and you have to replace your orders. It's not too far out of the realm of my imagination to say that bounce was legitimate simply because people were locked out of their accounts for X amount of time. I wouldn't put it past them to have orchestrated it, but I don't necessarily think they orchestrated it. Either way, it shows that they can't handle a black swan event, which isn't good. I mean, so regardless, it isn't good. It's obviously much worse if they did it themselves. I tend to think that's probably not the case, but I honestly don't have a real true opinion. I haven't seen enough data or really read anything enough about it to understand or seen evidence on either side. Short shark. Basically, BTC narrative is toast for hedge for fear and word panic. Yeah, I mean, if you look at prices today, I mean, look, the price was going down. Everybody said, haha, it definitely wasn't a hedge. It's not a source of storage of value, blah, 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 blah. But of course, if you look at comments today on crypto, Twitter, and everywhere else, people are saying, look, haha, the decoupling has begun. Now, if I look at these charts, especially looking at, daily charts, this is a retracement off of a rather steep drop. And if you want to get, if you want to bring in Fibonacci or Elliott wave or whatever you're using to track movements, Fibonacci, I don't even need to put a Fibonacci on my screen, but I can almost guarantee you this is very close to a Fibonacci retracement level. So, I think that I think we're going to see lower prices, to be quite honest. This was caused by a very short, very quick snap in the market based by fear. Fear doesn't go away before the underlying reason people were fearful goes away. People were fearful because they heard, oh shit, this might get worse. But when it gets worse, fear will get worse, right? So, people say, oh my God, it's going to get worse. Then you get probably some of the same people who sold coming back in and buying Bitcoin, and that boosts the price up a bit. But understand that the higher we go, the more people that didn't get to sell on the last drop are selling, right? And that sell pressure is probably going to get pretty weighty. And we're going to get more bad news. There's going to be more deaths out of Italy. There's going to be more people getting on lockdown. There's going to be more eventually in the next couple of weeks, you're going to start to see mass business closures, foreclosures. You're going to see countries having to print money like they never have before if that's their idea of staying ahead of the crisis. And we haven't seen any of that happen yet. So I'm a sidelines guy right now. I'm not, but I agree with you that I think the people that initially said this is a non-correlating asset are wrong. They've been proven wrong. They may be proven right at some point, but for now, proven wrong, 100%. I mean, there's no real argument against that. How's the CSD different from other attempts at tokenization within the industry? Well, Mohammed, if you look at everybody else's attempts, so Securitize, TokenFi, Dust, there's a few others. They all focus on regional. First of all, they generally focus on regions. So Securitize has gotten a little smarter. I actually met with the guys from Securitize summer last year, maybe going into fall last year in London. And at that point, they had no regulatory strategy in the US. And I told them they were crazy. And then shortly after that, they applied for this transfer agent registration. So they can thank me for that one, I think. Unless either that or they were really good actors at the time when we were at this lunch. The point is that they have a pretty good strategy, but they are primarily focused on primary market. And they're still really only looking at what would be kind of like non-retail public, right? So accredited investors. There are many platforms that aren't tokenized, where you as an accredited investor can go and invest in, maybe not tokenized, but you can invest in all kinds of different opportunities. The reason for tokenization, one is fractionalization. And one of the main reasons you do fractionalization is so that you can get more people involved in the markets, retail guys, small investors. Nobody's tackling that. A lot of them are tackling, some of these companies are tackling in a region for that specific region. And that creates a siloed business opportunity, which is what CSDs and transfer agents have done since forever, right? Cross-border has always been a problem. Opening up cross-border leads to more liquidity. Having the ability to open up cross-border needs to be addressed, and it hasn't. So we're looking at cross-border real-time settlement. Most of these guys are either not focusing on all the different pain points, or they're simply focusing on one pain point. We're looking at doing the whole spectrum. So going from not only primary market issuance and primary market to billboard, not only billboard, but also matched orders, then running through secondary market and having real-time settlement across multiple MTFs and ATSs across the world, where you do not have to, paper yourself through 4,000 intermediaries to be able to access markets on the other side of the planet. Thoughts on rumors saying big miners caused the crash and did so to push smaller miners out, heading into the halving, causing liquidity issues for them and potentially causing them to close down. So I haven't heard this rumor yet. So you're saying that the rumor saying larger miners caused the crash to push smaller miners out, heading into the halving, causing liquidity issues for them. But what I'm seeing is that larger miners are actually the ones pulling the plugs now because they can't afford the underlying cost to mine because of the price. Of course, that might be changing now with today's little jump. I don't know. It's a plausible rumor. It's a plausible conspiracy, that's for sure. Guys, I don't think you need to explain panic selling given what's happened in the world. I mean, we can argue that the panic is bullshit. I could argue that till the cows come home. But you can't argue the fact that there's panic selling in every market. So why would that be different for this market? There's always been this argument that somehow Bitcoin would be different, that somehow everybody would sell everything, but go to Bitcoin. Oh, the boomers, the kids of the boomer, the boomers or the kids of the boomers are going to inherit all this money over the next 10 years. And a lot of it's going to go to Bitcoin. And all these stories about how Bitcoin is going to gain all this money, and this was the first test, guys. This was the first real test, and it failed miserably. But it failed for the same reason everything else failed. in that people, human nature, man, is that when the shit really hits the fan, people liquidate to cash. And you can look at the currency markets. What cash did they liquidate to for the most part? The US dollar. The evil, infamous, hated, always gonna die US dollar. Right? Why? Well, because around the world it's the most used currency. That's it. Right? To get that out of people's mindsets, guys, even young people, don't think that it's just the old guys liquidating into cash. You know, lots of people liquidating into cash, right? So I don't think you don't need to drum up a rumor. It's people freaked out and they sold. And when people saw other people freaking out and selling and said, oh shit, and had weak hands because they didn't want to see the thing potentially go to zero, they sold as well. Simple as that. I mean, easy market mechanics. You said before that once the CSD is up and running, that CM will be the only game in town for a little bit before they're joined. Why is that? Can you elaborate on that? So mainly because when the CSD is up and running in the Sandbox, there won't be any other connected MTFs. It'll just be CoinMetro. So that's why we would be the only game in town in terms of anybody that wants to trade on the secondary market for those listed assets. And in some instances, perhaps even the primary offering. And then once getting out of the Sandbox, it's possible that CoinMetro may be one of the only, if not the only, connected MTF as well, depending on how the rest of the market matures and how CoinMetro moves ahead with licensing. And when we go to different sandboxes, when I say we, I mean, let's say Ignium and CoinMetro, because we do this together to show how the full ecosystem works. If we run into a position where we both have options to get licensing in that sandboxed environment, so getting out of the sandbox, moving into an actual license, both companies will probably choose to do so. And if we do, then again, CoinMetro would be at least maybe, I mean, I'm not saying it would be there for a year, 10 years, 5 years, 8 months, 9 months, 4 months. I don't know the time frame, but we would be the only or one of the only MTFs connected. So that's what I meant. That is pure bullshit. What is this? You can go long on credit when useless bulls are running stuff up to 19K. Then it's not, when it's not worth that. So longs can get rewarded, but shorts gets punished. Yeah, I said the same. That was basically my point, in that all these circuit breakers and everything else, all these things that are supposed to protect, are only there to protect the underlying economy, guys. Because obviously, if they were there to protect the trader, they would also protect just that, people who go long and then get screwed. Or what happens if the market goes up 30% one day? What happens to all the guys that are short? They got screwed. Did somebody come in and help them out with a circuit breaker? Well, no, because for some reason, everybody loves to see the market go up, of course, unless you're on the other side. Does the CSD do anything other than change ownership titles, et cetera? Yeah, of course it does. So you're talking about custody. You're talking about holding the registry. You're talking about corporate actions. So that's dividends, coupon payments, automation of those things through smart contracts. You're also talking about, well, a myriad of different corporate actions that we will offer as we go into the future. And yes, the golden registry, and then custody solutions as well. With liquidity being an issue at the moment, is it nearly time for G20 governors, central banks, and big banks to call in 30 trillion in Nostro Vostro accounts and use XRP and ILP to free up that 30 trillion? That's a unique, if you would have said this, right before, I would have said, that's probably not going to happen in the short term. But seeing how governments are reacting and they're just kind of ready to pull out all the stops, I mean, I would have never thought in my lifetime that I'd be getting a check from the US government for anything, to be quite honest, and especially not because, some global economic crisis, unless a massive war was tied to it, maybe. So I guess it's possible. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that potentially, we're talking about war, that could potentially cause a war. What it shows, like I already said, is simply that the way the economy works globally, the way that different economies are submissive almost to other larger economies, the way that smaller economies use larger economies and use and trade assets and trade currencies and all these that are tied to larger economies that are supposed to be too big to fail, so to speak. None of that actually works in times of real crisis, and we're proving that now. So, where do you go from here? The whole thing needs to be restructured, and unfortunately, even crypto up to this point hasn't proven. Now, XRP and ILP and all these things that you can use to kind of move funds rapidly. Look, there already are systems at the Fed level, at the central bank level, where they can DVP between central banks almost in real time. So maybe it's not public. So I guess XRP might be a better option there. But it's an amazing time. It's amazing in the fact that never really thought I'd see these things happen. But I guess every generation has it's an amazing time. I never thought I'd see this happen time in their lives. And this is definitely one for us, that's for sure. When will the first issuance be taking place and what will it be? First issuance probably is going to happen first couple of weeks of April. And we've been in talks now with a few issuers. So I can't tell you exactly who the issuer is going to be. But it'll probably be a plain vanilla bond product, as I discussed previously. Yeah, you're right, Short Shark. It should have never coupled at all. But it coupled because humans trade and human nature comes into effect during times of crisis. And in times of crisis, people go to cash. And that's something that for some reason people didn't put together. Bitcoin to 550. And that would be it'd be a nice buy-in, I guess. Limited exposure to the downside for sure. Now that your digital content guy has started, how is your marketing plans progressing? How long will it take to get running? Well, he's in full kind of get to know the brand mode, doing interviews all around the company, asking questions of everybody, seeing if everybody sees the brand the same way. I actually have my little interview early next week. So I think by end of next week, he'll have a much better idea of what the vision is, how to scope that vision, and where he thinks that vision can be adjusted, whether that be through content, whether that be through creative, whatever it is. So I think we had envisioned by the end of March to basically get rolling. I think we're going to be roughly 2 weeks behind schedule, but not so bad. Not so bad considering that I think we found the right person for the job. So a shout out to Morteza, by the way, our new guy in marketing. Shout him out so everybody knows who he is. Good to see you were right on par with my drop TA and reasons everywhere. I'm in sidelines till the cover bounce is done so I can reopen short. Yeah. I would say you have much more. I mean, in terms of risk, guys, I'd be looking for shorts rather than longs right now. That's for sure. The risk to the upside is, I think, substantially larger by at least a 2 to 3 to 1 margin than it is on the downside. But yeah, Short Shark, I'm with you on that one. What's new on BizDev? Jesus, with all the shit that's going on in the world, I don't know. I'm focused right now on, like I said, payment gateways, banking relationships, just really trying to get, make sure this whole thing with this kind of not being able to list things as we want has kind of gotten to a heat, and I'd like to be able to list things when we approve them internally. So ever since maybe 4, 5, 6 weeks ago, well, I would have to say since inception, we were always looking for different banking partners, different payment providers, but we got kind of complacent with LHV, so we stopped looking, and now I've kind of really started to push forward to find. Not necessarily get rid of LHV per se, but because, we need new banking partners, right? So we need to find people, we need to get partners in different countries. We want to be able to have local deposit options, all these good things. So that's been a lot of my focus has been there. And then making sure we get this marketing team up and running. That's another focus point. And now we have, Montenegro about very close to going live. So also focusing a bit of attention there. What do you think about when you sent 30,000 soldiers to Italy, sent 30,000 soldiers to Italy to shut down the mafia, and also the MS-13 mafia in US got shut down? What do you think about when US sent 30,000 soldiers to Italy to shut down the mafia, and also the MS-13 mafia in the US got shut down? What do I think about that? I think that while the world complains about the fact that from an external eye, the U.S. looks like they want to act as the world police. Except for maybe one or two instances of the U.S. strong-arming into a country without specific knowledge of that country or them giving the go-ahead, even if afterward publicly they say they didn't, that help is always requested. So I think a lot of countries use the U.S. to do their dirty work. Obviously, it benefits the U.S. as well. So in many ways, but they ask them to do that work because the U.S. has some of the most trained individuals in terms of military policing in the world. So yeah, I don't know what to think on most of those things, but I guarantee you they weren't there out of their own, just because they wanted to be there. Now, definitely there's instances, you can go back to Noriega, Panama, stuff like that, when the U.S. basically forced their way in. The U.S. was using Noriega to move drugs into, communities in the U.S. that they kind of wanted to decimate. Same thing happened during the Vietnam War. The U.S. government if there is a hell, I think the CIA will probably be there at some point. They actually probably have the logo on the wall. On the entrance, it's like who sponsors. When you walk into an event, they have all that board where all the sponsors are. When you walk into hell, there's like this big like CIA logo where you get your picture taken. But I guess you can make the argument on that one is, if that type of organization didn't exist, would be worse off or better? And I don't know if I can answer that question too easily. Where are you with the big marketing campaign with data scheduled to be pushed out? As I said, first kind of foundation is being done now. I think second week of April, you'll probably start seeing some movement there publicly, but behind the scenes, it's already started. So interviews with the team members, our new guy is getting acquainted, etc. So, and he's moving fast. So hats off to him. What's next in terms of releases? Good question. We have a lot of, dashboard, I think probably is the main thing, new dashboard. Do you still think CM can make money in the current environment? Yes. Are you stateside right now? Nope. I'm in Estonia inside of our offices. This is my office inside of our larger office in Tallinn. What did you say his name is? Mozzarella? No, he's vegan just like me, so definitely not mozzarella. It's Mortessa. Mortessa is his name. And mozzarella. No, that would go against the whole vegan kind of vegan brotherhood, I think. So. Akev, thanks for the MA. There is a rumor that you will lose banking partner LHV in May. Do you have a comment on it? I can say that I do have a comment on the fact. I think I saw this. Somebody brought this to my attention. It was something on what is his name? 4chan, right? Yeah, 4chan. My comment on that would be: don't believe everything you read on 4chan. That's my comment. So Google Inception was funded by a CIA-run VC fund. The CIA, trust me, the CIA is in a lot more things than most people think they are. True story. Trust me, there's lots of true stories people wouldn't really want to hear. Right? Your English is amazing for not being in America. Just because I'm not in the U.S. doesn't mean I'm not from there. I was born in the U.S., grew up in Northeast, left 21 years ago. Lived in Mexico for many years, and now I live here. But I do hold a U.S. passport as well as a Mexican passport. So, have you heard why Wuhan, Italy, Iran, and South Korea has most cases? Those countries have a lot of 5G satellites. Once China shut down the 5G in Wuhan and gave C vitamin to everyone. I don't even know what that means. Smith and Wesson. You seem like you're quite the expert on conspiracy theories, so you'll have to explain that one to me. But I would tell you that at least from the Italy standpoint, South Korea, the initial outbreak happened in a very large cult with many members, and that's why they ended up having so much of a contagion effect there. In Italy, they have an old population, so that's it. Plus, when you talk about culture, Italians love to go outside and sit on those little cafes and all that nonsense. I think it's partially that, and partially it's culture, and it's also the age of the population. So anyway, when are you going back to Pakistan? No immediate schedule, unfortunately, to go back to Pakistan. For me, it doesn't even make much sense to go right now because I think a lot of things are getting shut down. I don't really have any qualms with traveling, to be quite honest. I would travel without really thinking about it, to be honest. And I know there's people out there that'll say you need to get it. You can't travel because you're risking old people's lives. Well, then those old people should stay home. What can I say? I just coughed. This whole, I understand that people think they're doing the right thing for a myriad of different reasons. If you're in an at-risk group, you shouldn't mix with people that are in a risk group. That's for sure. But that shouldn't mean that the global economy should shut down either. To boost their immune system, hence the reason why nobody's getting affected anymore. Yeah, I get that, but it says once China shut down 5G in Wuhan and gave vitamin C to everyone. So they shut down 5G. I get that they gave vitamin C to everyone. I get that piece. But what does the 5G have to do with it? That's the one I'm missing. Good, then I will meet up with you at some point. Stop teasing the t-shirts until you put them on sale, please. Yeah, this one. This is the old don't look at prices, buy some XCM shirt. This is my Perfect Friday shirt. Will the coronavirus finally kill the boomers? Will I actually be able to afford an apartment soon? Well, if the government just starts giving everybody money, I think no, unfortunately. 5G got started in Wuhan. Yeah, I'm still not making the connection, man, between how 5G has anything and the fact that they shut it down and then gave people vitamin C. I'm not getting. Look, I love conspiracy theories. I could make up like 50 of them right now in my head. That would be an awesome. We'd read a book, but I'm not getting the correlation yet. I don't know if it's just me. Anybody else getting the correlation? I don't know. Okay, 5G. Well, maybe that's the correlation. Okay. Everything undermines the immune system, guys. Everything. If you literally are intaking more than like raw vegetables and water out of a stream in the fucking Ozarks, you're probably doing damage to your immune system, right? Microwaves, TV, radio waves, even stress, all that shit kills the immune system. You could say that maybe 5G hurts the immune system, but hear me out. Here's a conspiracy theory for you. Now everybody's at home. Nobody can, leave their house. They're all on lockdown. So everybody's trying to watch Netflix and the stupid videos on YouTube to pass the time. And now they're putting them all in SD and they're limiting bandwidth. So when you're watching them, it's like watching a video, the first video streaming online 10, 15 years ago. And it's, so that causes stress, lots of stress, right? You're getting pissed off. You can't watch your favorite fucking Netflix show or whatever. You're trying to watch some asshole dive into a pool and then hit his balls somehow. I don't know. You're watching some nonsense on YouTube and it's stuttering. You're getting stressed out. And that stress is actually hurting your immune system. So maybe this whole keep us at home thing, right? And then limiting our access to internet is actually just a way to ruin our immune systems even more. So when we actually do go back outside, that second wave is even worse, kills off 90% of the population. Boom. What do you think about that one? When are we getting the dashboard redesign and increased margin leverage? So we talked about increased margin leverage a few times over the past, I don't know, week here or so. Incrementally, those are going to start to happen, I think, even starting next week. Doesn't mean you're going to see the increase next week, but you're going to start to see us reducing limitations starting next week. It will be incremental. Dashboard, they're working on it now. The goal is to have something online by the end of the month. It might not be it might be just on Sandbox, but it'll be like a working prototype by the end of the month so that we can get some feedback from you guys. Yeah, don't worry about your English, Smith & Wesson. I was just not collecting the dots, to be quite honest. You didn't put enough information, I mean, if you had said in the first one that 5G destroys your immune system, boom, I would have gotten it. right away. Had nothing to do with the English. If you are a boomer, you probably remember when they said microwave was mutating your DNA. Even I remember that. I'm not a boomer. I remember the first microwaves. My grandmother got one. My uncle bought her one. I think it was like $1,500. That microwave was like the size of a big television. Made a lot of noise. And the first time she used it, she microwaved a potato, opened it up, it exploded, and gave her third-degree burns on her face. So yeah, that's my microwave story. So there you go. Ask me anything. So are we meeting in the Ozarks? Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, I'm in Estonia. The air here is pretty clean. So it's not the Ozarks, but actually, it's probably cleaner air than the Ozarks, to be quite honest. But Kevin, on the other hand, you remind me of these guys that always denied tobacco, asbestos, lead were harmful. Yeah, look, I can take any side of an argument, right? I mean, everything is harmful. I mean, that's just nothing that right now, if you're chewing on a low-fat, low-calorie, gluten-free, all-natural granola bar, I guarantee you there's something in there that's probably going to give you cancer, right? I mean, nothing that gets manufactured is good for you 100%. That's for sure. And nothing, and there's always this, you always get this one asshole in the room that's like, well, it's natural, so it's good for you. Well, no. There's a million natural things that'll kill you instantly, right? So, everything's bad for you, I think. But I could look, if you put me on the other side to argue that asbestos is good for you, I could knock that one out too if you like, So, if you're a good debater, I think you can be on either side of the equation pretty easily. And that is how BTC goes to 550 based on your Netflix conspiracy theory. Exactly. How many more are you looking to hire for the marketing team? Right now, we're looking at one senior content provider, kind of creative director maybe. And then we'll probably have some part-time or project work for helping with strategizing, structuring, and maybe even some, at least one other full-time person, and then possibly 1 to maybe 3 part-time project-based or maybe even agency-based solutions to fill the gap. 1 XCM, €1. Right after it surpasses 99 cents and before it hits 101, I think is a pretty good conclusion for that one. Oh yeah, and don't forget the mass DNA collection with all those swab tests. Yeah, right? Fucking A. Yeah. I mean, don't get me started on the tests, man. Because if I hear one more, my father, is in the high risk group. He's in Northeast United States, and he's worried that if he leaves the house, he's going to die. And we had this discussion. He's like, well, the numbers are insane. 10% of the people that have gotten it have died or whatever have been. And that's so wrong, right? Because I didn't get tested. Did anybody here actually get tested? I feel fine. Did people who feel fine get tested? I could be a carrier. I don't even know. I could have it already, to be honest. I did feel a little fatigued the other day. I think I coughed twice. Most people that even get it and don't feel the majority of the more severe symptoms don't end up getting tested. So the only people that get tested are the ones that seriously think they have it. So obviously at the end of the day, there's a huge skew in the data from how many people have the disease that are tested for it and how many people die from it. That's also part. I mean, that's another conspiracy theory for you. If you watch the news, because they say there's not enough tests, which is probably true, but don't go get tested if you don't think you need to, right? So now people have this burden on their shoulders. Well, I'm coughing and everything, but I don't feel that bad. So they feel they can't go to the hospital because they have all these doctors holding up signs like, I went to work so you could stay home. Please don't come here, or whatever nonsense, And now people don't get tested. So there's so many conspiracy theories out of this one, guys. It's I'm telling you could write a book about it. Just COVID-19 conspiracy theories. It'd be like 9,000 pages long. I'm tired of being poor, Kevin. Poor is relative, Bjorn. You have a device that allows you to get on the World Wide Web and chat with me every Friday. You're not poor, buddy. You're pretty okay. Glad I tuned in to see if you were cool like Oliver. Yeah. Me and Oliver, I don't know who's cooler. He definitely has more hair. So if you're basing coolness on the amount of hair someone has on their head, then I guess Oliver wins. If it's hair overall, I might give him a run for his money. It might be in a little too much personal information. I apologize. It's Friday, so get over it. Blame it on Corona. Bjorn, are you chatting during work time? Are you planning to advertise CoinMetro to get more users? Of course we are, Smith Wesson. That's what we've been talking about here. Marketing will start with some force, probably come mid-April. Right now, we're structuring everything to get ready for that. Yeah, CoinMetro. Yeah, you know, maybe everybody here might have thought CoinMetro would have made them rich. Unfortunately, we weren't one of those companies that got lucky, or one of those companies that did nothing and just price went up for no reason. Nah, based on you saying some asshole in the room claiming healthy cause all natural. Yeah. I don't know how many times I've heard that, man. And sometimes from smart people, you know. Well, it's all natural. It can't be bad for you. Like, yeah, here's an arsenic sandwich, you know. Go have at it, bro. It's all natural. Are staff working from home at this point in time? If so, good security protocol continues. Well, we still have people coming to the office. I'm in the office. I mean, I have to walk like 7 feet from my bed to get here. So it's still easy for me. But yes, people are still coming into the office. Look, I don't buy this horse. How many people are tired of the emails coming from every company you've ever given your email address to say how awesomely they are following their disaster recovery plans and that COVID-19 is not affecting their business and that they're powering through? If I get one more of those emails, bro, I'm going to print them all out and film me lighting them on fire, doing like some ritualistic dance. Maybe I'll do that next week. I don't know. But I'm just so tired. Well, come on, man. Like, you know, making everybody work from home to me doesn't make you like the most brilliant leader in the world. You know, people go and work where they feel most comfortable. And if they feel comfortable coming in the office and it makes them more productive, have the fuck at it. Obviously, if you come in here and your skin is green, you lost a leg last night, you know, and you're coughing up blood, you know, maybe you shouldn't have came in, you know. Barring that, I think people are using this now like for just really low hanging fruit on saying that they're like awesome, they're awesome leaders. Because trust me, telling everybody to go work from home doesn't make you an awesome leader. You know, I literally got emails from like companies that, you know, like a data center. Don't worry, guys, we're handling everything remotely. That's what they fucking do anyway. Like what has changed? Anyway, that's just a rant from me. Sorry about that. Will there be any coin buyback? You mean buyback like us using our own treasury to buy back XCM? Not necessarily, but if you know how XCM works, meaning fees, we basically take money we earn from fees and use that to buy XCM backing from the market. So we already have a form of buybacks that happens every time a trade is placed, every time we make revenue, and those are placed back, those are bought back from the market on a weekly basis, and then vaulted. So when margin posting? Yeah, right now, unfortunately not on the biggest priority list. But I do think it's probably the next major project that'll be worked on. I would assume probably Q3 is that, probably early Q3, something like that. No word exactly on when leverage will be increased, but we've been talking about those two levels, jet fuel, X5, X10, internally, discussing on how exactly we would do that, how exactly we would manage the product, the risk on our side, et cetera. So negative balance risk, all that good stuff. So the discussion is already in. I'm for raising limits. I'm for raising limits to at least that extent. So, and I think everybody else is as well. Now it's just about finding the right way to do it. All right, guys, we're about 10 minutes over an hour. Okay, amazing. Okay, so I think it was an okay show today. Everybody got their AMA fix, I guess. Oliver told 125x. Yeah, look, theoretically we could. There'd be people on one side of the fence saying that we're destroying people's lives, and then the traders on the other side would say, "Thank God, this is awesome." I don't think 125 is needed. I think we would generally follow ESMA guidelines, 25x max, and that's what's placed on currency, for example, within the European Union. I think 25x, and that's not something we would do immediately, but I think that's probably the limit, because I think eventually that limit's going to be applied across the EU for crypto as well. Hasn't been applied yet, but I think it will be. So yeah, look, if you want 125x You know, what people don't understand about leverage for the most part, look, if you have 100K in your account, but you're only risking 2% per trade, that's 5K per trade, and you're going 100X on 5K, right? That's the same thing as you going 5X on 20K. You're literally risking the same amount of money, depending on where you place your stops, right? Depending on your risk management. So you can go a million depending on what kind of capital you have. It doesn't really matter what type of leverage you have. You can work out the figures to make sure that you're risking what you want to risk. Yeah, those guys would say that they also want halts for bears and no cap for longs. Yeah, exactly. You know, which makes sense, obviously, to somebody somewhere. Obviously not a trader. Okay, guys, so we're 10 minutes out of the hour. I had a good time chatting with you guys today. I hope you had a good time chatting at me, or I'm chatting at you. You're chatting. I don't know how the fuck this works. 100K at 125X. Well, if you're risking 100K per trade, right on. Right on. You know, hopefully you're also on quite the antidepressant. I'm Kevin Murcko. Thanks for coming here, guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for sharing your thoughts. Have a great day. As I say, always say, spend some time with friends and family. It is the weekend. Don't look at prices. And for Christ's sake, buy some XTM. You know, outside of that, see you guys here next week. See you guys on Telegram. You can tag me at Kevin Murcko. You can tag me on Twitter at Kevin Murcko. Pretty much anywhere at Kevin Murcko. I think I'm everywhere or nowhere or somewhere all the time. So have a great weekend. Again, still have questions, tag me on Telegram. I'll hit you guys up there. If you like voice messages, you're going to like my responses. Yep, don't catch anything airborne. That's a good one to add nowadays. I should get a t-shirt with that. I'm gonna have our t-shirt guy make a coronavirus meme. So hopefully in a couple weeks I'll have that shirt on, and let's see how it looks. All right, guys. Check you later. Cheers.